भक्ताय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिनां मध्ये महाभारतम्।
Now, Krishna starts a strange kind of instructions. Continuously, next 4 sloka, he gives various options. Step by step, step by step, step by step. He says, if you can't do this, do that. If you can't do this, do this. If you can't do this, do this. Krishna is giving various options. He is giving various instructions. And he says, first thing, Adaschittam samadadum nachaknoshi mahistiram abhyasa yogena tado mamichaptum Dhananjaya. O Dhananjaya, fix your mind upon me with a constant practice and try to attain me. If you are not able to practice, then perform actions for me. Then, apyasepya savarto asimat karmo paramo bhavaha madattamavi karmani kurvan siddhimavapsyasi. If you can't practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. Because working for me will help you. Adaitapya saktosi kartumatyyogamasritaha sarvakarma balatyagam tadak kuryadatmavan. If you are not able to even work in that mood, consciousness, give up all the results to me. He is giving various options to Arjuna. These 4 slokas, continuously gives options to Arjuna. Shreyo jnanam apyasat jnanat jnanam visishyate jnanat karma balastyagas tyagas chantiranantaram. So many instructions he is giving. Step by step he is giving the option. Actually, this is not even for Arjuna. For all kinds of mind. Let me tell you a small story from Ramana Maharshi's life. Somebody goes to Bhagavan and asks, Bhagavan, what spiritual practice I should do? He says, do Atma Vichara, self-enquiry. Start searching, who am I? After a few days he comes back and says, it is very difficult, can I do meditation? Bhagavan says, all right, do it. After a week he comes back and says, meditation also very difficult. Can I do some stotra and japa? He says, all right, do. After a few days he comes back. Japa also very difficult. Can I do some puja? He says, all right, do. After a few days he comes back. Puja also very difficult. Can I start going only to temple and come back? Then Bhagavan says, all right, do what you want. They do not want to close the doors for anybody. Please understand. They are giving option for everybody. Here this 4th sloka also is giving option for everybody. You need to have tremendous spontaneity to understand this. Only with spontaneity you will be able to handle these 4 instructions. For example, when you are in the mood of not meditating, if you don't feel like meditating, you are in a very low mood, then don't try to sit in a room with closed doors. Don't try to fight with yourself. Just come out, come to the temple, spend some time freely walking, moving around. It will relax you. Then you can enter into meditation. And if you are not able to do that also, take something else. Do something which gives you a really relaxed mood, which makes you feel relaxed. Then you can enter. Here he tries to give you step-by-step instruction to the ultimate, last step. Last step is just being in that consciousness, bliss. But because you can't do that, don't stop altogether. At least do something. I have seen people who will speak about meditation, speak about Atma Sadhana, all these things, but when it comes to practice, thinking of doing meditation, they will stop all this puja, rituals, everything. In the end, they will not do the meditation also. Because I don't have enough time, Swamiji. My mind is not concentrated, Swamiji. I am not able to sit quietly, Swamiji. First they will drop all these things in the name of meditation. Then they will drop the meditation also because of some reason. Then neither this nor that. Krishna doesn't want that to happen to us. You need spontaneity to decide what to do at that moment. Whenever I utter the word spontaneity, I always remember this one story. This really happened. It is not just a story. It's not just a story. It really happened. In my native place, it was a small village. Now it has become a little like a district headquarters, town. In those days, it was a small village. They used to recite Mahabharata. Mahabharata every year. Every year, in that corner of that village. In India, every traditional village will have this recitation of Mahabharata. Once in a year. They trust, they believe that if you recite Mahabharata, rain will come. So because of that, they have that habit of reciting Mahabharata. In North India, Bhagavata. In North, they recite Bhagavata. In South India, Mahabharata recitation or Ramayana. My village, they used to recite Mahabharata once in a year for 60 days. In daytime, they will tell the story. They will recite the story. Night time, a small drama. Village drama. Not organized, trained, arranged people. In that village itself, 4 people will take some role and they will play the drama. More than a drama, the mistakes which they do will be funny. So people all will sit and gather. People all will gather and sit and watch. Not for the drama's sake. The mistakes which they do will be really funny. Because what comes as Veena for Saraswati, same thing will come as Gada for Arjuna. For Hanuman. Hanuman will bring the same thing as Gadayudham. Next day, Saraswati will bring the same thing as Veena. It will be really funny. And 4 or 5 people only will play all the role. And Krishna will be some 80-year-old man with one stick in a hand, and he will not be even able to walk. With the help of somebody, he will come and, oh Arjuna, stand up. By that time he says, Arjuna, stand up, he will fall. And it will be really funny to watch the whole drama. All the mistakes they do. And I used to go and attend that drama every night. And only male can participate as a ritual. It's done as a ritual also. The people who participate, they have to wear the sacred thread in the hand, and it is done as a ritual. They will have to recite all those poems completely, and they have to do. Only male participate in the rituals. That day, the scene is supposed to be the Vastrabharana, Draupadi Vastrabharana. That removing the clothes, sari from Draupadi. Trying to pull the sari from Draupadi. That is the scene. And this guy, he had all the makeup and decoration. And 7 thin saris he was wearing. According to the scene, the Duryodhana is supposed to pull till 6th sari. And by the time it comes to 6th sari, he has to act as if he has become tired and he is falling and he has to do some drama and fall. Then Krishna will appear. And actually the moment Duryodhana is about to fall, Draupadi will shout, Krishna, Krishna. Krishna will appear. Because I am remembering the whole scene. And Krishna will appear. Suddenly what happened when the scene started, the Duryodhana forgot the count. He forgot the count. Total 7 sari. He is supposed to pull 6 sari. By 6th sari, he should fall. Once he falls, Draupadi will call Krishna, Krishna. Then Krishna will jump in the stage. This is the scene. And this guy somehow he forgot the number, counting. And he started pulling the 7th sari also. He started pulling the 7th sari also. And this Draupadi, she is trying to show through eyes, hey, it's 7th sari, 7th sari. But this guy is not understanding. He thought that Draupadi is acting nicely, so he is pulling. Then suddenly, Draupadi started beating Duryodhana directly. Hey, leave my sari. Hey, leave my sari. It's my sari, it's my sari. Straight away, Draupadi attacks Duryodhana. And they are all surprised. Morning the story says different. Now evening drama says something different. And straight away he is attacking. Actually by the 6th sari, Duryodhana is supposed to fall. And Draupadi should cry Krishna, Krishna. Krishna should jump into the stage. And Krishna is waiting behind the screen with beedi. And he is waiting for the call to jump into the stage. With beedi is standing behind the stage. And he is waiting for Draupadi to call. And Draupadi is shouting, hey Duryodhana, leave my sari. And hey Duryodhana, leave my sari. So Krishna is thinking still the scene is going on. Till the 6th sari is not over. He is thinking standing there smoking the beedi. And this fellow, without understanding, finally, he got, and moreover Draupadi kicked him also. So he got so much angry, he just pulled the sari completely. Suddenly we saw in the stage with a half female decoration and with a dryer, this guy is standing. Below male, above female. All makeup, female makeup. The long hair and the face with female makeup and female dress, above female dress and below male dress. This guy is standing in the stage. And somehow this guy is little spontaneous. Suddenly he turned. Krishna, just because you can't come, you made me as male and saved my life. You converted me into male and saved my prestige. This guy is a spontaneous guy. He managed the whole situation because he has to manage the mistake done by Duryodhana and the mistake done by Krishna because he has not appeared on the stage. He is supposed to appear and still he is waiting with his beedi for the call. When Draupadi will call Krishna, Krishna. When you have spontaneity, really you can manage anything. Whenever I remember the word spontaneity, I remember this story. One more small incident. That is also again about spontaneity. Actually, spontaneity is one of the spiritual quality. Only a man who is not caught in his past, who is able to slip from his past, can be spontaneous. If you have vested interest in your past decisions, in your past life, when I say past life, I don't mean previous births, in this birth. If you don't have vested interest in your past decisions, means if you are really open to understand what all mistakes you made in the past and ready to update yourself, only then you can be spontaneous. If you have vested interest in the past, no, all these years I lived believing this idea and understanding in this way. Today, just because something is told to me, I will not change. I am not going to change. Because throughout my 50 years of life, I lived based on this concept. I cannot change. Then you can never be spontaneous. And you will miss life. Miss life miserably. Please be very clear. The very quality of life is it updates itself. It can be called as intelligence only as long as it updates itself. When it stops updating itself, it is called intellect. It can be no more called as intelligence. Intelligence is living energy. In Sanskrit, we have a word called di. Di means which is alive. In Sanskrit, the word for intelligence is di. Di is an energy which is alive, which continuously updates itself. Only if you don't have vested interest in your past, the decisions of your past, or the way in which your past is lived, the way in which you lived your past life, only then you will be able to be spontaneous. Spontaneity is one of the great spiritual quality. One person, I was speaking at the time on Isavasya Upanishad. I was giving a discourse. One elderly person, by seeing you can say well-read, scholar, elderly scholar. Straight away he walked into the hall. I was giving discourse. He did not even have a basic courtesy to put any question after the discourse. Straight away he walked into the hall and said, all these fools who have not read, you can make them listen to you. Can you make me listen to you? I just said, please come, I am not able to hear what you said. He came near. I said, please come this side. What do you want to say? He came this side. Then I said, I think there is some table. Please come this side. I turned this side. He naturally came near. Then I told, already you have listened to me 3 times. Now sit and listen what I say. Already you obeyed me 3 times. Now sit and listen what I say. You seem to be a very good person. Do sit and listen. You can never escape from spontaneity. Later on, I was surprised. I read this same story with a Zen master. After this incident happened, sometime I was reading some book, I read the same story, a Zen master's life. I was surprised how this history repeats itself. Anyhow, then the guy was shocked. He was shocked. What happened? Actually, when you have the spontaneity, nothing can stop you. Spontaneity is one of the great spiritual quality. Here, Krishna gives 4 different instructions. Either you can establish yourself in Bhakti Yoga or live a regular routine life of spiritual routine, or sacrifice all the fruits of action to God, or live in the consciousness and do the action. Whatever you want, you can do. He says, at least, if not this, do this. If not this, do this. If not this, do this. Now, all we need to understand is, don't stop in the low level. Try to always go to the higher level. When you can't go to the higher level, at least stay with the lower levels. Don't renounce completely. Somebody asked me, Swamiji, why do we have so many gods in India or in the Eastern religions? All Eastern religions have got many gods, whether it is Hinduism or Buddhism or Jainism. They all have so many gods, so many saints, so many gurus. And all the Western religions has got only one God. Why? See, Vivekananda says beautifully in one place, in one discourse, freedom is the basic condition for any growth. In any field, if growth has to happen, means freedom is basic condition. Basic condition. In the East, always they have had inner freedom. You can worship whatever God you want, according to your mind, according to your mental setup. You had a complete freedom in the inner world. Your husband can worship Shiva and you can worship Kali. Your husband can worship Kali and you can worship Rama. Nobody will disturb. Your religion or spiritual practice is your option. That's why we have the concept Ishta Devata. Ishta Devata means whatever form suits your mind, you can worship that form. In scriptures, they say 33 crore devatas, means 330 million gods. Actually, I think that time that was the population. So they wanted, let each one have customized God. Let you have customized God. That is why they said 330 million. Now, if the scripture is written, they will say 6 billion gods. Each one has got freedom to choose his path. They had inner freedom. That is why the East has grown so much in spirituality. In that freedom, there are so many good things. Tremendous research work happened in the inner world because of that freedom. So much of research is done in the inner world, and so much of truths related to inner world is brought to the light, brought to the humanity, because so many people entered into that. There will always be few fake. Please be very clear. When so many millions of people enter into that path, when so many millions of things are expressed, there will always be one or two superstitious things. You think superstitious things are only in the spirituality. In science, lot more superstitious things exist. In science, lot more superstitious things exist. At least in spirituality, they have no vested interest of saying something. Whatever masters say, that is not going to add anything in their personal life. They are going to eat only that much, and they are going to wear only those few pieces of dress. Nothing is going to add in their life. But with the scientists, whatever they declare, it is going to add name and fame, money, comfort to their life. So naturally, they have vested interests. With the spiritual people, the more they are renouncing, means less they enjoy the comforts of the outer world, more they are respected. So naturally, whatever truths they declare, whatever research they do, it's not going to add anything to their personal life. Because the respect is given only based on the life, not on their words. With scientists, it is based on their words. So in science there is more possibility for superstitious things than in the spirituality. And more people, when they enter into this life, there will always be one or two superstitious things. Just because of that, we can't say the religious freedom itself is wrong. Spiritual freedom itself is wrong. It has done a lot of good things also. In the West, there are social freedom. You can marry as many number of times you want. You can change your house the way in which you want. You can change your profession the way in which you want. Nobody will bother. Nobody will mind. You can dress as you want. Still now I know in India, people who obey the family traditions, who have not gone out of their family homes, they don't even shift their houses, they don't change profession, they don't change lifestyle. East, they don't have social freedom, but they have spiritual freedom. In the West, they have social freedom, but not spiritual freedom. Any growth to happen, freedom is basic condition. Here, Krishna is expressing the spiritual freedom. In these 4 slokas, he gives the spiritual freedom to all of us. He says, there are so many paths. Choose something which suits your mentality and practice it. But do at least something. With the Eastern tradition, they gave many choice. If you are intellectual type, Shiva suits you. Continuously sit and meditate. If you are emotional type, bhakti type, Vishnu is here. Sing and dance like a Chaitanya. Meera, sing the glory like a Alvars. Relate with Vishnu. If you are a type of being, then Devi is there. If you are a yoga type, if you are a type of yogi, then Devi is here. Meditate on Devi. Do the pujas. Do the tantra sadhanas. So many different kinds of techniques. The options are many. So, again and again, you are given so many options. You have the customized way, customized path for your personal growth. So naturally, wherever you are, you can grow and reach the level where you are supposed to reach. They have all size ladders, all different kinds of steps. Wherever you are staying, from there to the goal, there to the end, continuously you are given choices, you are given options. So naturally, you tend to take up something or other. The East has explored so much. It has explored so many things. It has done such a big research in the inner space because of spiritual freedom. West has achieved so much in the social level because of social freedom. Of course, India has struggled a little bit because of lack of social freedom. But it has got a lot because of the spiritual freedom. Because of spiritual freedom. Here, Krishna is explaining, giving all the choices of spiritual freedom. Do this or do this or do this. These 4 slokas explains the spiritual freedom given to the society. Here Krishna is giving spiritual freedom to Arjuna to choose, of course not only to Arjuna, through Arjuna to all of as abhyaso abhyasammarto asimat karmo paramo bhavaha madartamabi karmani kurvan siddhimavapsyasi. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage, siddhim avapsyasi. Then he says one by one, giving all the options. Finally he says, Shreyo jnanam apyasat jnanat jnanam visishyate dhyanat karma phalatyagam tyagas santiranandaram. If you can't take all these practices, then engage yourself in cultivation of knowledge. He says, at least collect all these life solutions. Cultivation of knowledge means collecting the life solutions. How to avoid depression, how to be more courageous, how to be strong, how to avoid when desires and emotions take you over. These are all the knowledge. If you can collect life solutions which can help you, protect you. See, we speak about earthquake kit. We speak about hurricane kit. They say that a water bottle and so many things. All these things should be made as a kit and kept in all the cars in Los Angeles, in California. That fire department website, there's a big list. What all you have to do to prepare yourself for earthquake. They call it earthquake kit. Here, in the West, they speak and prepare all these things. But they don't prepare to face the earthquake which happens inside. The emotional imbalance which happens inside. Just like preparing for earthquake, you need to have the inside, inner earthquake kit. The inner earthquake kit is what I call these life solutions. Knowledge. Collect all these things now itself, so that when you face some depression, be very clear, all of us are going to face some inner earthquake in our life at some time, at some point or other. If you are dead, then there will be no problem. If you are dead, then there will be no earthquake. As long as you are alive, naturally at some point some of your friend will die. Some of your relative will die. Some near and dear may fall sick, or they may die. All these things are inevitable. Inevitability of the moment to moment has to be understood. Understanding the inevitability of life and collecting the knowledge, collecting the tools to support yourself at that moment, collecting the ideas to balance yourself at that moment is what I call jnana, knowledge. We need to prepare earthquake kit for our life. Otherwise, we will not be able to recover. You see, the aftermath will be terrible. If you never expect, if you don't expect, if you don't brainstorm, now itself, the inner earthquakes which may happen in your life, or inner hurricanes which may happen in your life, inner storms which may happen in your life, your aftermath will be very difficult. Please prepare now itself for aftermath. In the Eastern system, they prepare continuously for inner hurricanes, inner tornadoes, inner earthquakes. The jnana is the earthquake kit. Knowledge is the earthquake kit for inner space. Now, human beings are developed. You don't have to choose between inner and outer. Have the outer earthquake kit in your car. Have the inner earthquake kit in your heart. You don't have to choose. Now you have both. Because of communication, we have both. Somebody was asking me, Swamiji, Buddha made 10,000 people enlightened. What is your aim? I said, without newspaper, without flight, without telegram, without website, if Buddha can make 10,000 people enlightened, with all these things, we should make at least 10 lakh people enlightened. Only then it is worth having all these things. We have today flight, internet, media, newspaper, radio, TV, everything. We have all communication system. When we have whole thing, at least 10 lakh, only then it is worth having all these things. Otherwise all these things are not worth having. Now you have everything, inner world and the outer world. Have your earthquake kit in the car. Same way, have your inner earthquake kit in your inner space. And never take inner earthquake very lightly. If you take it lightly, naturally you are going to, of course, taking inner earthquake lightly itself is ignorance. It means you are inviting a big trouble without preparing for aftermath. Be very clear. When it comes in the outer world, you can always blame somebody. You can always blame officers, officials, directors, politicians. You can blame somebody and get rid. You can put the responsibility on somebody. When it comes to the inner world, you can't blame anybody. You can't blame anybody. It is you who is going to take the responsibility. It is you who is going to face. As Krishna says, Uttare Atmanatmanam Atmanam Avasadayet Atmanyeva Bandhuhu Ribu Ratmaivaha. It is you who is supposed to lift yourself by yourself. If you can lift yourself by yourself, you are the great friend for you. Otherwise, you are the great enemy for you. He gives the option between these things: practicing, cultivation of knowledge and meditation, or renunciation of the fruits of action, karma phala tyaga. In all these things, one is better than the other. First thing, he says, cultivate knowledge. Better than knowledge is dhyana, meditation. Better than that is offering everything at the feet of God. And he says, by renunciation of all the karma phala, all the fruits of action, immediately you achieve peace. As long as you think everything is mine, you have to suffer. The moment you surrender, the moment you hand over the whole thing to divine, something called inner healing happens to you. Your inner space experiences the healing breeze of divine. Santiranandaram, he says, the eternal peace immediately happens to a person who renounces the fruits of action. Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karunayevacha nirmamo nirahankaro samadukka sugachami sandushta saradam yogi yadatma drida nischayah mayyarpida mano buddhir yomat bhakta same priyaha. He says, now, see all these slokas, he was telling Arjuna, do this, do that, or do this, or do this. Now he says, now he's not telling, do this or do that. He says, who does all these things will be very dear to me. If you don't do also, okay. If you do, you will be very dear to me. Emotional blackmail. Not directly, indirectly. Of course, for good purpose, nothing wrong. Who is not envious, but is a kind of friend, kind friend to all living entities. who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind, intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Understand, here he says, who is not envious and kind friend to every living entity. It's a very important quality. Before that, let us analyze our mind. If we honestly analyze, at any time, if somebody says he loves me, or he loves you, if any time somebody comes to you and says he loves you, you never believe that. First thing you calculate what he wants from me. What he wants from me. First thing, you don't believe that you are worthy of loving. Next thing, you don't believe somebody can honestly love, because you never love anybody honestly. Because you always calculate. You expect the other person also calculates. All our love is just only skin deep. You know the depth of the skin. It's only skin deep. Here he says, a person who is friend of everyone, who is friend of everyone, kind friend of everyone, who honestly serves, feels the friendliness in everybody, and who is free from false ego. Now we have to understand this word false ego. Ego means not only showing what you don't have, hiding what you have. Many times there are two kinds of ego. Superiority complex, the active ego and passive ego. Active ego is showing which you don't have, and passive ego is, no, what can I do? I am a simple person, I cannot achieve anything, I cannot do anything. Hiding yourself into that passive ego. Inferiority complex also is ego. Please be very clear. One thing, at least with superiority complex, wherever you go, you will have a nice beating. The society will nicely give you. You will understand. You have superiority. With inferiority, society will not beat you. And it is a cunning way of hiding yourself from life. You will not even know you have problem. Person who hides in the inferior ego will suffer the same way, I think much more deeply, than a person who hides himself in the superiority ego. And a person who says, I don't want name, both are egoistic. If you ask for name, you are egoistic. And if you don't, again, that shows the passive ego. Person who lets things happen, person who allows things to flow as it is, only lives with reality. And then Bhagavan makes a comment, after all, who is going to know who are you? Who is going to know who are you? Why do you think you are a big person and your name is so great and everybody is as if, you think as if everybody knows your name. That is why you don't want your name. Nobody knows your name, relax. Bhagavan says very clearly, nobody knows your name, relax. Nobody knows our name. Please be very clear. Asking for name and saying that I don't want name, both are different kinds of ego. Different varieties of ego. The inferior ego also ego. That is why here he says, false ego. You are not only supposed to be free from ego, you are supposed to be free from false ego. You can't hide yourself in inferiority complex. small story. A master asked disciple, please press my feet, do little padaseva. Disciple says, oh, I am a sinner, how can I touch your feet? And he just don't want to do, his laziness. I am a great sinner, how can I touch your feet? How can I have that great, how can I do that? It's such a big thing. And some devotee brought some fruits and prasad. The master put little in his mouth and kept it. Next day he saw nothing is there. He asked disciple, what happened? He said, Guru Prasad, how can I leave it? I finished the whole thing. Because it is Guru Prasada, I finished the whole thing. See, the mind, in a nice way we handle all the concepts. Wherever we want, we insert. When we don't want to do work, we say, no, how can I touch your feet? I am not qualified that much. I am not such a pure soul. When you want the food, Guru Prasad, and finish it. Many times, we collect all these concepts to support our ideology. That is why they say, devil quotes the Bible. Please be very clear, only devil quotes the Bible. When you quote only the specific things, you become devil. Understand the whole gist of the Bible, you will become God. You don't need to quote. Then people will quote your words. If you digested Bible, you don't have to quote Bible. People will quote your words. When you have not digested the Bible, you will quote. Whenever you quote without digesting, you will be devil. So always only devil quotes the Bible. Never person who understands. If you understand and digest, people will quote your words. And you don't have to quote any other thing. Person who is established in forgivingness, who maintains equanimity of mind and who is satisfied, united with yoga, you see all these qualities will come. The moment you understand the futility of your goal and wealth, nothing is going to be with you forever. When that is understood, all these qualities will start radiating through your being. Actually, when you are blissful inside, you radiate all these qualities. A man who is totally blissful inside will radiate pleasantness. For no reason, he will be radiating pleasantness. If you are irritated inside, the other day I was telling in the lecture, the discourse, continuously we carry a kind of slight irritation in our being. We are just waiting to jump on people. The moment we get a small chance, we just scream, shout, jump, throw tantrums, and don't know what we are doing. We just jump and bite people. We are waiting for chances. Because you carry that irritative mood in you, you continuously vomit the suffering and misery on others. Once you understand the futility of the irritation, however you are irritated, whatever you create by that irritation or tension is not going to stay with you. Only how you live, how consciously you live, with what consciousness you live, that only is going to be with you. When you understand the importance of your state of being, automatically you start radiating pleasantness. You start radiating joy. And I always tell people a very simple meditation technique. To really experience Bhakti Yoga, do this simple technique of radiating pleasantness. How to do? From morning till night, whenever you remember, when you inhale only the pleasant qualities of bliss. Visualize you are inhaling bliss and exhaling bliss. Your whole being is filled with joy. In the beginning, it will be like a visualization, imagination. But in few days, you will understand it is your quality. One more thing you should know, imagination and visualization are two different things. Imagination means kalpana in Sanskrit. Visualization means bhavana. Bhavana is different from kalpana. Kalpana means imagining which is not there. For example, if you imagine an elephant with a 10 trunk, it is imagination, kalpana, which is not there. But bhavana means visualizing which is there. In the daytime, if you sit and visualize stars in the sky, it is not imagination, it is visualization. Because stars are there, you are not able to see, that's all. So visualizing stars is not imagination. Visualizing what is, what you are not able to see at this moment is visualization. Imagining what is not there is imagination. Be very clear. Meditating on gods and goddesses is not imagination. It is visualization. They are there. You are supposed to fall in tune with them. That's all. Tuning your TV. If you tune your TV, immediately you start seeing the program. Same way, tuning yourself is what is? Visualization. Just visualize. Continuously, you are inhaling bliss, exhaling bliss, and prana which goes inside and comes out is energy, and it is bliss. Understand? Prana is not air. Prana is energy which goes through air. For example, a lorry comes into your house, unloads the luggage and goes out. The lorry is air, the luggage is prana. Lorry is air and luggage is prana. Prana is not air. Through air, prana comes. Subtle part of air is prana shakti. So, prana shakti is bliss energy, ananda shakti. So visualize, whenever you inhale and exhale, inhale, you are inhaling bliss. When you exhale, visualize you are exhaling bliss. Inhale the light, exhale the light. Feel your whole body is a bean bag filled with light. If you have seen bean bag, same way visualize your body is a bean bag filled with bliss and light. Continuously, automatically you will start radiating bliss instead of irritation, instead of vomiting poisons of anger and jealousy on others. You will radiate love and bliss on others. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. He says, if somebody lives like that, he is close to me. That's all. He doesn't say do or don't do. He doesn't want to make any more rules. He is tired of making all rules. At one point, if you do it, otherwise all right, what can be done? He comes to a relaxed mood. I think it always happens to all masters. All masters come to this position. After some time they say, all right, do whatever you want, what can be done? All right, do whatever you want, what can be done? To a certain extent only, we can guide or show. Otherwise, people start thinking, the masters have got some vested interest by making you enlightened. I really feel sometimes people start suspecting. As if I make 10 more people enlightened, I will have a special place in the heaven. Or my salary will be increased. Nothing, nothing. Just out of joy and bliss it is shared. A small story. One blind man in Himalayas, he was walking. Suddenly, he felt through his hand a snake which is frozen because of the cold. The frozen snake, like a stick, it's lying there in the snow. And he touched and felt, he saw, oh, I think a good walking stick. He took that and started walking. Because it was frozen, like a wooden log it was lying, and he started walking with that. One sannyasi saw that, one enlightened person, he saw that, and he shouted, oh blind man, drop that, it is not a stick as you think, it's a snake. In 2 hours, sun will come, the snake will come back to life, and it will bite you, it will kill you. Then the blind man says, no, I know everything, keep quiet, you do your work. Enlightened man says, alright, understand, it's a snake, it will bite you, you will die. Then he started telling the blind man, I think you don't have a stick. You are asking me to drop so that you can pick up this stick. You can pick up this stick. I am not going to drop you. Drop this stick. I know about you. Then master says, fool, understand, this is not going to help you, it's your life. He tries to snatch the stick. Then blind man is trying to beat the master with the same stick. That's the same thing happens in the life. When masters say, drop the I and mine, people are afraid that he may pick it up. He may take it. He may take away. What to do? I think he is not having. That is why he is asking us to drop. When we drop, he may take it. He is asking us to drop so that he can take it. People are always suspecting. That's the reason. Sometimes masters say, all right, this is the way, do as you want. Here Krishna has come to that same mood and he says, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me, that's all. Then more than that, everything is up to them. Then he beautifully ends this chapter. It's a very small chapter. That's why we are able to see almost the whole chapter. Almost. Samasatrau cha mitre cha tada manapamanayo sidoshna sugha dukkeshu samasanga vivarjitaha tulya nindastu dirmauni sandushto yena kenachite aniketasthiramadir bhaktiman me priyo naraha. Again he says, such a man of full devotion is dear to me. Again he is not ready to put any rule. Means he is almost ending the instructions. He is almost saying, enough. This is the way. If somebody is like that, I love him, that's all. I am not interested in anything more. I am not interested in giving solid, rigid instructions. Enough. He says, one who is neutral towards friends and enemies, who is same in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, joy and pain, free from attachment for fruits of action, those who remain same in criticism and praise, who is taciturn and thoughtful, is contented with whatever he gets, who does not care for any house and resolute in mind, such a man, full of devotion, is very dear to me. Here is a beautiful word. Who does not care for any house, who doesn't bother to build any house for himself. Who doesn't bother to build any house for himself. Somebody asks Vyasa, let me tell this story. Ravana's age is 1 kalpa. Vyasa's age is 4 kalpa. Ravana was building a huge, the Langapuri. He brought that Langapuri as a gift from Shiva and he was developing it. Vyasa comes to the city Then Ravana asks, "Oh Vyasa, did you see my palace? Did you see my country? How grand it looks?" Vyasa said, "Yes, I saw." He took him around and showed with all pride and asked, "Why don't you also have a house for you?" Then Vyasa just smiles and says, "My life is just 4 kalpa. I have no time to waste building in my time in house and all." And why to waste time building houses and all? I am going to live here after all 4 kalpa. Why to waste our time in building houses? Ravana's life is only 1 kalpa. For that he is making such a big house. Vyasa, who is going to live 4 kalpa, says, "Why to waste life unnecessarily in building house and all? I am quite happy with this." With this. So man who is not bothered about house, he is the person who is full of devotion and he is near to me, dear to me. And actually I tell you one thing. Many people ask me, "Swamiji, when I go and stay with devotees' houses, they say, 'New place, did you sleep well?' I said, only when you have attachment to one house, other houses are new place. You will have struggle. When you don't have that one house idea, wherever you go is your house. You will feel completely homely. You will feel at home with the whole world. In last 2 years, our ashram record says, I visited 1,200 houses. Totally. Of course, in India, per day 40 houses we visit. Sometimes that Pada Puja and all those things, when people do, per day 40 houses, just visit and blessing the people. 1,200 houses. Hundreds of houses I stay all over the world. But I never feel anything is new. And I feel totally at home. People ask me next day, "Swamiji, did you sleep well? Are you comfortable?" I said, "What is there? If you stretch your hand, food. If you stretch your leg, sleep. That's all." That's the life. Nothing else to be done. If you don't feel attached to one home, you will feel at home with the whole world. With the whole world you will feel at home. You will be totally relaxed. People ask me sometimes, "How can you continuously travel, move, Swamiji?" Especially the people who are in the travel business. The people who are in the business which needs traveling. They ask me, if we go for 1 or 2 places and come back, it takes 1 week for us to settle down. Again to our routine, our life, to feel comfortable, to feel ourselves. How you are able to continuously travel? Because I stay in any place maximum 1 week. Now because we started the ashram, I am staying here more than a week. Otherwise maximum is 1 week only. The secret, the thing is not feeling connected to one house. You will feel connected to the whole world. You will have such a deep at home feeling with the whole world. Wherever you go, you will have that deep, relaxed bliss and ecstasy. And here he says, who does not care for any house, such a man full of devotion is very dear to me. Edu turyam mritamidam yadoktam paryupasade sraddadana matparama bhaktaste divame priyaha. Those who follow this imperishable path of eternal consciousness and who completely engage themselves in this path with Shraddha, with sincerity, making me as their life, purpose and meaning of their life are very dear to me. Divame priyaha. They are very dear to me. Krishna says, the people who are following this path are his own, his very being, his very life. Here we have accumulated questions of so many chapters. I'll try to answer a few of the questions, then we will end the session. Dearest Swamiji, you mentioned there is no diverse word in Sanskrit, but in the West it is a reality. Is spiritual divorce possible? Be very clear. If you are spiritual, there is no need for divorce. If you need divorce, there is something seriously wrong. Understand, real spirituality will make you better husband, will make you a better wife. Don't complain. No, he is not spiritual. He is not falling in tune with me. All these things are just because of your expectation. Let me tell you honest truth. You project and see. It may hurt your ego. It may hurt you. Look little inside. You will understand for every problem you also contribute. Nobody can hurt you without your permission. Nobody can disturb you without your permission. Nobody can possess you without your permission. You must be having some vested interests. That is the reason you must be allowing this type of persons itself in your life. Attracting this type of persons in your life itself. Attracting a person who is not in tune with you itself is not spiritual. It means you have something wrong within your being. Search, work on it, heal that, everything will be cleared. I have read and know some people who have had near-death experience, out-of-body experience. All of them describe it as a very beautiful experience. Then why does Gita describe it as a painful? 1,000 scorpions biting. Please understand, that day when I explained the death experience, I was speaking about a normal man's death experience. Here you say, I heard and know some people death experience. The moment you say, I read, means you have read their experience. You heard from them, means they are some way or other meditators, spiritual people. That is why they had the experience and came back. What I was describing is once for all leaving. What you are speaking is having and coming back. Having and coming back means it is a spiritual experience. It is not death experience. That day what I was describing is actual physical death, not the conscious transformation. What Ramana Maharishi experienced is conscious experience of death. But what that day I was describing is the actual death of a normal human being. Physical death of a normal human being. Understand the difference. Maharaj, Krishna says, my devotee never perishes. But if everything is God, what perishes really? Krishna makes it sound like his devotees does not perish and others do. Please explain and remove this doubt. Understand, the moment you understand you do not perish, you become devotee of Krishna. There is no such category. Only Krishna's devotees will not perish and others will perish. Whoever understands that they will not perish, they become Krishna's devotee automatically. The moment you understand his concept, you become his bhakta. So, be very clear. If you understand everything is God, then nothing perishes. When he says, my devotee never perishes, Name bhakta pranashyati. Name bhakta pranashyati. He says, my devotee never perishes, means this statement is made in a relative level. If you feel it, if you understand, everything is God, nothing perishes. When if you understand that level, if you reach that level, this statement doesn't make sense for you. This statement is for a normal person who is in the path, who is understanding. If you experience everything is God, nothing, you don't have to bother about this statement. First thing. Next thing, The moment you understand nothing perishes, you become Krishna Bhakta. So, Krishna is not making any partial statement. He is not showing any favoritism. Only my devotees will not perish and others' devotees will perish. No. He doesn't mean it that way. Whoever understands this philosophy will not perish. Whoever understands this science will not perish. If you understand this science, and even if you are not devoted to the flute and the peacock feather, you will not perish. So don't bother. If you think the Krishna means that flute and peacock feather, only then this question raises. If you understand Krishna is beyond peacock feather and flute, you will not have this doubt. My devotee never perishes. When he understands, he never perishes. That is what Krishna means. Please explain how to drop completely your samskaras, engraved memories. A deep explanation, please. Also, how to drop everything and totally surrender. You are asking how to drop completely your samskaras, how to drop everything and surrender. Come tomorrow and day after tomorrow lectures, I'll tell you. Because next 2 days is all about engrams. We are going to work in a very deep way on every engram. The desire engram, the guilt engram, and the pain engram. We will work on every engram separately. Not only it will be a discourse, it will be like a interaction, working. We will work together on engrams for next 3-4 days, especially the Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga and all these chapters. These are engrams only. We will work on it. Respected Swamiji, for meditation is savasana okay, or you should sit and meditate, sit to do meditation. If you lie down, you will only sleep. Even if you sit, you will sleep. And if you lie down naturally, you will sleep. Please don't lie down and meditate. You see, when you sleep, you can meditate. But don't sleep when you meditate. When you sleep, if you meditate, nothing wrong. But if you sleep when you meditate, then there is something seriously wrong. Don't do savasana and meditate. But meditate when you do savasana. If one dies on Mahasivaratri day or any auspicious, does soul has direct entry into heaven? I think I answered this question. Dakshinayana or Uttarayana, all these things are psychological, not chronological. When I say Uttarayana, when Krishna says Uttarayana, when your energy moves upwards, that is what is Uttarayana. When you are totally at ease with yourself, is what is Uttarayana. So be very clear, it is psychological. And there is no such thing that in the Disney World and all, the weekdays, the Tuesday and Wednesday, they have a discount. Because not much crowd comes. So some days they have special offer and discount. There is no special offer or discount in heaven. It is only up to your quality of life. So be very clear, there is no special offer. If one should have no goal, is achieving bliss not goal by itself? Please help me to understand. Don't make achieving bliss as one more goal. You will miss it and mess it. Drop all your goals. Bliss will happen. Bliss will happen. You cannot make lotus to flower. You can create all the possibility and wait. Then automatically lotus will bloom by itself on its own accord. You cannot do anything. If you open the petals, it will be a dead lotus. It will not be a living flower. So don't make dead bliss, plastered smile. Let smile be from your being. Let it overflow as an expression of joy. If someone thinks of money, dear Swamiji, if someone thinks of money all his life, what kind of life he will get next time? Rich man's life or a poor man's life? That depends upon your intelligence to take the responsibility. If you are intelligent enough to take the responsibility, don't bother about next life. In this life itself, you will have rich man's life. If you are not intelligent enough to take the responsibility and work for it, not only in this life, at any life you can't have a rich man's life. If you are ready to add all the ingredients which is needed for rich man's life, see, for example, to do certain cooking or some item, some dish, you need to put all the ingredients. Then that will happen. Sometimes it happens in a different way also. Wife was cooking. Husband came and asked, "What are you doing? What you are cooking?" She said, "Still I have not fixed the name." Once it comes out, only then, only after that I can give name. Now I don't know the name. What is the outcome? What is the product? After seeing the product only I can name it. So sometimes, even if you put the ingredient, things don't come out. That is different. You see, for any dish to be made, you need to add certain ingredients. Same way for a rich man life, rich life, you need to add some ingredients. Responsibility and ability to take decision, courage and risk to face the life. If you take all these things, if you have all the ingredients, you can make your life rich today. You don't have to wait till next life. Respected Swamiji, I worship formless form of God. Can I still follow you and become your disciple? Understand, I already answered this question. Only if you are worshipping formless in form, you can understand me much easily. You can relate with me easily. And as I told you, I have a clear instruction. My disciples cannot meditate on my form. They should not meditate on my form. They have to go only into the conscious experience. I do not want them to get caught in my form. Not only in my form, never get caught in any other master's form. Why do we hear of rebirth? Self-realized saints. What does it mean? Out of compassion to help the world, the Parashakti sends few enlightened masters to the planet Earth. She decides to activate a few enlightened bodies to help the planet Earth. It is her decision. We can't decide anything about it, and we don't even know the secrets based on which she is deciding. You can only put application. You don't know how it will come, why it will come, why it will not come. It's like American visa. You have to just submit the application, that's all. And wait. When it will come, and why it will come, and why it will not come, when it will not come, and nothing will be known. Nothing will be known. Simply, you will have the result, that's all. Whether it comes or not will be informed to you, that's all. Nothing else can be done. Same way, it is just Parashakti's decision. Nothing can be known about that. You may be thinking you are given everything, but nothing works. Respected Master, each day I come and learn beautiful knowledge. I am so happy. Then I go home and feel little confused, even depressed. Please, what is going on? I think I answered this question. Right thing is going on. Don't worry, whatever is going on is right thing. In the initial level, this is the way it will happen. Don't count the moments of depression. Count the moments of blessing. See, just by its own light, moon shows the problems or black patches which exist inside. By its own light, it shows the black patches. Same way, by your own intelligence, you understand how you fall depressed and confused. If you understand you are confused or depressed, that itself shows you are growing in intelligence. That itself shows you are growing in intelligence. The light has started radiating. But you came and put me these questions, so I will repeat the question and tell the answer. He asks, actually, in the beginning of the Mahabharata war, everybody was following the Dharma. But after a few days, you start seeing adharma, night times going and killing. All the 5 sons of Pandavas are killed when they were sleeping. When they were sleeping, all the 5 sons of Pandavas are killed. And this Arjuna attacking Karna when he is not having the weapon. Karna was attacked and killed when Karna was not having any weapons. And Abhimanyu was killed. Abhimanyu was killed by a group of warriors. He was a single guy without weapon. He is standing in on a ground. His grandfather, his own relatives, his uncle, all these fellows are standing, and they killed just hardly 18-year-old boy. 18-year-old boy, Abhimanyu. They killed him without any morality. The question which you are asking is right. You see, what happened exactly? When they started, it was all started for Dharma and everything. Slowly, this fellow, the Kaurava side, one step they went further. Then Pandava said, no, we have to defend. Let us also go beyond one step Dharma. They put one step. Then Kauravas, oh, you are coming 2 steps. Let me come and attack 3 steps. Let us break Dharma. 3 rules let us break. Then they say, oh, 3 rules you are breaking. Then let us break 4 rules and defend ourselves. After 10th day, all the rules are broken. It has become brutal war. After 10th day, it cannot be called as Dharmakshetra. That is why it is called as Dharmakshetra as long as Bhishma was alive. The moment Bhishma, of course, did not die, but he was made to lie. He was made to move away from the battlefield. The moment Bhishma moved away from the battlefield, from that day it cannot be called as Dharmakshetra. It is just brutal field, not battlefield. Swamiji, if every waking and sleeping is as birth and death, and at the time of birth we create a earthly life, if each awakening is an opportunity for a new life in your current form? Yes, every day is an opportunity to transform your body and mind. Let me tell you clearly, you can even transform your body. Not only mind, even your body. Because your body is created by your mind. So let it be very clear. Every day is opportunity given to us to transform our life. Every sleep is death. Every waking up is birth. It is Janma and Marana. Be very clear. Every day is an opportunity for us to transform our life. Let us pray to the ultimate energy, Parabrahma Krishna, to make us all experience the truths of Bhakti Yoga, love our very life. Let us pray to Him to give us all the conscious experience of Bhakti, love, and make us experience and radiate eternal bliss. Nityananda. Thank you. Vasudevasudam devam Gamsachanuramardanam Devagi Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum.